Hey, Mr. Blake, how's it going? And I was like, told y'all, he checking badges. So I go and pull my badge out, and they arrest me. Like they grab my wrist, they put me on the ground, and they're putting me in handcuffs at the airport during our orientation. They're putting me in handcuffs. So I leave the airport in handcuffs. I had to walk through all of my coworkers, past all of my coworkers. I had to walk past my manager. He's like, "Yo, what's going on?"
Dropa esse beat.
Hey, yo, welcome. This is episode 3 on Ced Talk Podcast. Thank you for the love. Thank you for supporting episode 1. Thank you for supporting episode 2. Today's topic will be like father, like son. Like father, like son. Um, I was actually supposed to have my dad here with me. I was going to interview my dad, but he's not really a camera guy. He's camera shy, and so we got to change the plans. We got to pivot. The beauty is that my dad is watching, and then I had the great pleasure to interview him, interview my dad, and this was actually extremely impactful, for me because I got to know a lot of stuff about him, but knowing about who he was helps me as well, right? There was a lot of answers uh, that I've grown up without, and now having those answers it just gives me more, clarity. So as we're gonna start this show, like I say, like father, like son. My dad is a great guy. Literally, like he goes out and he literally speaks to everyone. Like he'll say hi to everyone. He's talking to everybody. You know, he is like a people person. That's why I need him on the camera. But I guess cameras are not people. Whatever. So um, we have a great relationship right now. He has a great relationship with his grandchildren. Um, excellent individual. He's active in church. Um, and my dad, but our relationship hasn't been this way um, for our entire time. Me being his son, him being my father, like we had some kind of friction in our relationship. I could recall when I was younger. So if you saw the second episode, you know that my mom and my dad, they're not married. So I didn't grow up with my dad in my house, right? So my dad was living in somewhere else. I grew up with my mom. Mom brought up my brother and I as a single parent. And so when I was younger, I was really curious about a lot of the stuff. How did it happen? How did you guys meet? All of these things. And a lot of the stuff that my mom told me, not in full detail, but as I got older, I still became curious. And I was like, hey, mom, I'm just curious, like, whatever happened to you guys? Why didn't y'all work? And so some of the things that I've heard from her also placed anger in my mind as well. To where I was like, whoa, he said those things to you, or whoa, like he did these things to you. Um, and so that placed those thoughts in my mind of just kind of like being distant from him. But then also, there has been times where, I'll ask, how come I haven't really been over there a lot or at his house, and my mom said one thing, but then as I got older, I asked my dad that question, and there was another thing that was said, and so I had to ask my mom again, like, wait, like, did you keep me from him? At a certain point of time, like during a divorce, like, was I not able to see my dad? And so this is very important because this is some of the things that I didn't know growing up. So I grew up most of my childhood thinking like that my dad didn't want me, or thinking that he didn't want to see me, but that wasn't really the case. It was just the issue of my mom, my dad getting a divorce, or we had to move and we were living in a completely different place. And so at that time, I wasn't seeing my dad. And there was another time I remember, I was watching those old school um, cassette, cassette players. My mom had one of them old school camcorders where you had the mini tape inside of the camcorder. You take that mini tape out and then put it in the actual uh, cassette tape, put it in a VCR or whatnot. And so I used to watch like my elementary videos often. I used to watch my graduation, my fifth grade graduation, pretty often. And one time I was watching the fifth grade graduation. I walked across stage. I was outside with all of my friends. I was just super excited, super happy. And the camcorder was in my face. And so I was just like, yeah, 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 I graduated. This is fun. This is fun. And I remember singing that Ja Rule song. Holla, holla, anybody that's ready to get dollar, dollar. If you know we give 'em a little, holla, holla, it's murder. And my brother or somebody was like making a joke of it. And I brought up my dad. Like while the camcorder was recording me, I brought up my dad. And I said, wait a minute, where is my dad? And so that moment, at that age, when I was watching the video, I said, why did I ask that question? So I called my mom immediately, like, hey, on the camcorder, I said, where was my dad? Was he not at the graduation? And she was like, he was at the graduation. I said, okay, what happened? Did he have to leave? What's going on? And I don't know how true, all of these stories are, but apparently, I don't know if they got in an argument or whatnot, but he ended up leaving. And so all I knew was that he left. And so in my mind, I was like, dang, like bro can't even, come to the graduation. Like, did I do something wrong? So I grew up really bitter towards my dad, but then I had a lot of anger in my heart towards my dad. The crazy part is, I honestly don't even think my dad knew that I was feeling this way because I never actually expressed it, but I was really dry with him. If he'll call me, he'd be like, hey, what's up, champ? And if you know my dad like very closely, that's what he say. Anytime I pick up the phone, what's up, champ? And so I was like, oh, what's up, Pop? So I'll just always be dry with the conversation. He's like, how your day? And I'm just like, good. Okay, what did you do? Nothing. You know, so it was probably awkward for him, but I don't think he actually knew that I felt this way. And this was huge because I actually grew up with these feelings, grew up with this thought. And I feel like because of that, I lost a lot of time with my dad. Like, I lost a lot of time to spend with my dad, to go out and enjoy, to travel, to go out, dinner, eat, things like that. I feel like I lost a lot of time because of these thoughts of mine growing up. Okay. I felt like I spent a lot of time being angry, right? So on and so on. But the beauty is this, like I said, I had the privilege to be able to ask him certain questions and to kind of get to know where he was, mentally at these times, right? Of the question. So one of the questions that I asked him was pretty much, how did he meet my mom? Right. So I was like, Pops, how did you meet moms anyway? So apparently they met in J.C. Penney's, which was cool. And so my mom was with my older brother and my grandmother. And so my dad, he was like, he saw my mom, was like, yo, she beautiful. I'm about to approach her. Feel me? Uh, so he's talking his game and whatnot. But my mom was looking at like a clothing rack. And then my dad was on the same rack acting like he's shopping, but looking at her, but it's the girl's clothes too. So she kind of knew what was up. And then he started talking to her. But then, like, I guess right at the end of the conversation, he was like, "Here, take this." Boom, slid her this $100. Here, take this money. Go get what Go get something for yourself. And that's pretty funny, man. So that's how they met. And I asked him. I said, "Well, what happened?" Right? I said, "What happened?" And so I really appreciate this answer, really, because it shows who my dad is now, like today. Like it shows that he is a great man. It shows that he is aware of his mistakes. It shows that he is aware, and he take full ownership of anything that he's done that caused this relationship to go, different ways. So I said, "Pops, what happened? Like with you and my mom?" And he was like, "Man, you know what?" He was like, "It was just me. It was my fault, kind of with it all. Um, just acting a fool, you know, um, emotional abuse, messing around, things like that." He was like, "It's my fault for sure." And he was saying how if he knew what he knows now, like if he knew then what he knows now, he'll be a whole different person. And so that was deep and powerful because, a lot of us, when things or relationships, like when we are separated or getting a divorce, like we don't fully take blame of it sometimes. We'll be like, "Oh, she don't cook good enough. Her breath stink just a little bit, so I can't." We come up with all these different excuses to try to get rid of our spouses, but this man just said, "Nah, it was my fault." So that was really powerful to hear him say that. And so, as far as like the encouraging words, I asked him, I was like, "So what would you tell your younger self?" And not just in marriage, or relationships, just in general in life. And that's when he quoted that. Like, if I would have known then what I know now, it'd be a different lifestyle. I'll live a different lifestyle. I'll be in a different situation. Um, my pops is like that. Like, it's crazy. I remember with my dad, where, so I used to get in trouble a lot. And so I asked my dad, I said, "Hey, Pops, what was our relationship like? You and I. How did you feel our relationship went growing up, And he was like, "It definitely has gotten better, you know, um, as you grew up and things like that." Because I remember when I was younger, I was pretty bad in school. I used to do all kinds of stuff. Me and my friends, we used to like in the process of like switching classes or acting like we're going to the bathroom and just kind of doing some crazy stuff at school. And one time I got in trouble in class and I didn't know my teacher called my dad. So I got in trouble. She secretly called my pops. And in my eyes, like my pops was always called just like anytime I got in trouble. It was never my mom. Like my mom never came up to the school when I got in trouble. Uh, and so my pops, he would come up to the school, snatch me out of class, and discipline me right then and there, though. Like, it is crazy. Like, one time he came in my class, literally picked me up, you know, and just brought me out in the hall, and so that was how I viewed him, though. Like, he just got a call. It's crazy because I literally was just talking to my pops the other day, and he was telling me on the other side of it, like he would get a notification to his pager and it's from my school and he'll know. Like he wouldn't even call back. Like he wouldn't call the school and say that somebody paged me. He'll get a notification and start putting his clothes on and just knew that I did something wrong. So that was just pretty funny to hear because I was like, on the flip side, I'm like, dang, how is my dad keep coming up here? Like, who is calling my pops? You know? And so they've been paging him this whole time. And he'll just get dressed. He'll never even call. Um, so it got to that point. Then I asked about just his life as a parent, but then just his work life, things like that. Um, like one thing I know about my dad, he's very like my dad is a hustler, meaning like he's a great worker. He's not lazy. He works his butt off. But also he had tons of like connections. Like my pops had so many connections. It was crazy. He had plug on the Jordans. You know, I used to wear Jordans all the time, every single day, new pair of Jordans. And my pops was a plug. Like he connected me with somebody where I can get the Jordans before they came out. So I would have Jordans on my feet walking or going to the mall. I'm walking in the mall with the new Jordans before they come out and waiting for my friends to get their Jordans on the day that it came out while I have it on my feet. So people be like, "Oh snap, he got the J's on. He got the J Jonas." You know, yeah. So I used to do like little jerk moves, show up to the store the day the shoes come out. But then even with jobs too. So like his work ethic, I feel like definitely rubbed off on me as well because when I was asking him about his life, when it come to like working and things like that, it reminded me too of when I had a job. I was 16 years old and I was working at Safeway. Uh, and my pops put me on, knew the manager, but I still had to like do the work. I still had to sit in for the interview and things like that. Put me on, you know. And then when I got into some trouble, like my pops put me on with a lawyer. So I got in some trouble. I got arrested and I went to jail. So I went to jail a few times. I know I mentioned a little bit when I was in my first episode, but I went to jail a few times and Pops like always was there. Like he had got me an actual lawyer. Like I didn't have any public defenders. Pops had a real lawyer for me. Um, so as I was growing older, I was like, man, Pops is solid. Pops is cool. Like I had all of these different thoughts about him and and everything like that. But I'm like, Pops is real cool. He was always like a provider, like a distant provider. Like I say, he wasn't in our home, but like he was always there if I needed something. So I get my license, boom, 15 and a half, got my L's. He provided a whip. He had a car for me, and it was a BMW. So he gave me an option. He was like, "Look, son, do you want this BMW 7 Series fully loaded, with the phone in the car, right? You got cream leather seats, chrome outside, chrome rims, or do you want this 300 ZX burgundy outside, chrome rims?" And he had CLB, that's our initials. He had CLB on the car, and on the inside of that 300ZX, black and red leather seats. I mean, go super fast. He says, "Which one do you want? Which one of these do you want?" And I'm like, "Pops, this is big." Of course, I chose the BMW. You know, I had to get that fully loaded BMW, youngster pushing the OG whip. But that was us. That was our relationship. It wasn't intimate. It wasn't. We didn't have like I said, we wasn't really going out anywhere. We didn't have like the best relationship, but he always provided from a distance. He came to my schools, he had disciplined me, but he also came to my school. He sat in a few of my classes, so he was there. So I grew up thinking he wasn't, but he was, so that's huge. Um, and I know it sounds like that I can be all over the place right now. But once again, he's not physically here. And so I was able to ask those questions. But from those questions, I'm kind of just speaking on what I've learned from his answers and how it affected me as well. And so, speaking of those connections, there was a time where I got a job. I was 18 years old, and I got a job at the airport. And they were showing me around. We had an orientation, so they're showing me around the entire airport. And this whole time, I felt like somebody was following me. Like I kept looking back, and I saw these two men just like kind of ducking off, moving their heads. And so we keep walking. And then I turn around again. I'm like, yo, these same guys are here. Like, what the heck is going on? So we go out by the baggage area. Like, if you're flying out and then you check your bags in, your bags go down the belt and it goes into the bag room. So they were showing us the bag room area, and that's when it happened, right? So we come outside, and I turn around. I'm like, yo, these guys are still here. Who is these guys? So now I'm bringing attention to the classmates. I'm like, yo, this guy's following us. Take your airport badge out so that, you know, we could show them, that we have our badges while we're in this area. So they come, and he goes, hey, Mr. Blake, how's it going? And I was like, told y'all, he checking badges. So I go and pull my badge out, and they arrest me. Like they grab my wrist, they put me on the ground, and they're putting me in handcuffs at the airport during our orientation. They're putting me in handcuffs. So I leave the airport in handcuffs. I had to walk through all of my coworkers, past all of my coworkers, had to walk past my manager. He's like, yo, what's going on? You know. So they bring me or bring me to their car. We drive all the way from SFO Airport to downtown San Francisco because now they're here to investigate me. And so I say, I want my lawyer, right? And so with all of that happening, right, they end up dropping me back off. Long story short, I had to resign from my job. Was on probation or whatnot. And so I was like, dang, I can't get another job. Like, what the heck am I going to do? And so, like, that was the worst part for me. Just kind of like, dang, I can't even apply for nothing because I'm on probation. Pops was like, yo, I got to connect. So he put me on with Walgreens in Fillmore. And so I was able to get the job there temporarily while I was fighting to get my job back, with the airline industry. And so now I'm just working in Fillmore. It's crazy. And so the reason why I'm sharing this is because one, my pops always had the connection. He always had put me on with anything that I gotten. My license, he provided a car. I got in trouble, he provided a lawyer. I needed help with a job, he provided a job. And so he always was there like this whole time, and I'm realizing it. But this moment here kind of changed everything. This moment changed a lot for us because when I was working with Walgreens, um, right in Fillmore too. So like if you know Fillmore, man, it can get rough. In that area sometimes. So you have people from the neighborhood, they'll come into the store, they'll steal a bunch of stuff all the time. But one guy will just constantly steal stuff like right in front of me. So I'm the cashier and he'll steal it as if he wanted me to say something so that he could respond violently, right? But I already like noticed that. I was like, okay, he seemed like he want me to say something so he can start something. So boom, I didn't say nothing when they left. Obviously the camera caught him or whatnot. So one night I told my dad, I was like, hey, Pops, this is my lunch break, whatever. I'm going to come up to the house and eat lunch with you. He was like, all right, cool, cool, cool. What time is your lunch break? And I was telling him, but then I also told him about this story. And I was like, it's also like, this little group of young people that come to the store all the time, yada, yada, yada. So I explained to him the story. One time he shows up right before I go on my lunch break. And I was like, oh, Pops, what you doing here? He was like, oh, nothing. Just thought I'd walk down with you and then we can walk up to the house. And so we walk out the store and he was like, let's go up this way though. Let's walk up this way. So we're walking a different direction to get to his house. And as we're walking up, I see the same group of individuals coming down. the hill, and I was like, "Oh, pops, that's the guy right here." Like, and he was like, "Oh, the one in the middle. Okay, cool, cool, cool." So we're walking, and in my mind, I'm like, "I don't know what's about to happen." He like, "Okay, this him, okay," and I'm like, "Yo, what is he about to do?" Right? And so we're walking, and they get closer, and my dad, remember I told you, he's really nice. He speaks to everyone. He's talking with them. He was like, "Hey, hey, how's it going? How's it going? You guys are doing all right?" They're like, "Yeah, yeah, what's going on?" And he was like, "Yo, he was like, you look familiar. Like, I remember you." Like, and then the dude was like, "Oh, you look familiar too. Like, what's up, OG? Like, were you fresh out or something? I feel like you went down or something." And Pops was like, "Yeah, yeah, like I had went down a minute ago. I'm out. I've been out for a while now, kind of just talking that talk." And the dude was like, "That's what's up. That's what's up, OG. Welcome home." And my dad was like, "Yeah, like I know your mom and them up the street and blah blah blah." And he was like, "Oh, okay, I remember you." And he was like, my dad was like, "You still at the same spot?" And the kid was like, "Yeah, yeah, we right here, like 447 Webster." That's not a real address, obviously, but he gave us an address. And he was like, "Oh, okay, that's cool, that's cool." He was like, "Y'all have a good day." And then we walk off, and I'm like, "Pops, you know that kid?" Like, he was like, "Nah, not at all." He was like, "But he gave me all of his information. Like, I'm just playing the game, and he ended up giving me all of the information. I was just going with it." He was like, "But I don't want anything to happen to you. And if anything does happen to you." So he gave me that look, and I already knew what that meant. And I was just like, "That's kind of dope. That's pretty tight." Like that was like some Denzel Washington type. Like, okay, that's what I'm talking about, huh? Huh? Okay, so they messing with you when I walk outside that store. Huh? Okay, I'm gonna be in their grill. Huh? Nah, but seriously, man, like my dad, I'm just giving him his flowers while he's alive still. Like my dad is an awesome dad, awesome grandfather, awesome husband, uh, just awesome in general. Like very nice guy. You know, he likes people, talking to people, and just he changes people's moods. Like people can be walking around angry and upset, but he'll change the mood because he'll speak to you. "Hey, how you doing? You doing all right? Cool, cool, cool." Like. And so now they walking away smiling. So like this episode is just really, I just want to give my flowers to my dad, but then also I learned a lot, right? It's called like father, like son. Like I'm like my dad in so many ways, though. Like when it comes to my work ethic, when it comes to him being in that relationship at the time, he came off controlling, very emotional abuse. Like I've experienced the same thing. Like, I feel like I've been controlling as well in my marriage. I emotional abuse, as well in my marriage. And so like being open enough to know that we can still change today. And he's a result of that. Like I'm looking at him and I'm looking at a changed man. And that gives me hope as his son, knowing that I can also change as well. So what I want to tell you all that are listening or watching in right now, like if you have this information about your parents, your loved ones, your guardian, that allows you to be bitter towards them or angry towards them, like squash all of that. Squash all of that. Build that relationship with them while they're here. Because things could happen where they're gone and you didn't get a chance to say I love you. They're gone, you didn't get a chance to hug. They're gone, you didn't get a chance to actually speak something positive with them or do something with them. You don't want to leave on a negative note. Okay, it's always I love you. You might have done something. I'm pissed off, but I still love you. So if you're out there and you have like the same struggle that I had growing up, squash all of that, man. Like I said, I had all of these feelings towards my dad, bitterness, anger on my heart. I don't even think he knew, but that's how I was feeling because I was curious. I was trying to put all the pieces together. But when I got older, like I say, being able to interview him is huge. Being able to interview my mom is huge. It's huge. And that's what I got for you guys. This is episode 3 on Ced Talk Podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. We are out, baby.